Hey, what is up, everybody? How's it going? How's it going? I'm gonna just stop that. So, we're back. It's Monday. Hope everybody's doing well. Twitch is kind of acting weird, so hopefully we're live and we're not having any issues. But if we're not, we'll get through it, and we might end up having to end early. We'll play it by ear. Anyway, today's Monday, so that means reactions, and I am back with more Warhammer stuff. Less than last time, I decided not to go back to Hell's Reach, though I did want to point out someone had mentioned in one of the comments that I posted on my YouTube channel that I was completely wrong. It wasn't sketched out. Hell's Reach is not sketched out. It's like a filtered kind of thing. But today we are going to check out a few things. Some of them are really, really short, and then this one's called Titan Forge. Now, haven't really seen these. I watched one of these earlier to kind of see what they were about, but I kind of skimmed. I didn't really watch anything. This one is called Titan Forge. Titan Forge. It's by Tao Mitch, and then we're also going to watch two from Warhammer Adventures. They look cool. Like I said, I skimmed through one of them, but let's just jump right into it. All right, full screen, full screen, full screen. Boop. There we go. And then let's make it bigger. Woo! Hey, actually, you guys might be able to see more of this now. But same deal as before. So we're gonna play this. We'll watch it all the way through once. Maybe if I see something, I'll point it out, and we'll just talk about it. I'll give my opinion on lore, if there is anything on lore, and I'll also talk about how the animation was made, if I have any ideas. You know what I mean? So yeah, let's jump in. All right. Just making sure that you guys are getting, decent audio. Mercian, what's up, bro? How's it going? We're watching Adeptus Mechanicus animation. So let's check this out.
Magos Dominus, your landing pod is ready in 4.5 minutes. Adult, Dominus, what is your desire? I saw in your personal records that you yet to visit the mighty forges of Proximus. Yes, Dominus. That's your place of origin, I've read. Ah, yes.
I already noticed something.
It was a time of great ambition. Proximus. There has always been over 1 billion workers in service here. Cities are built around these forges, and people stacked by the billions. This vast industrial world, with 1,000 ironclad fortifications, and another 1,000 streams, blazing with energy, like blood flowing through the veins, belonging to this forge, ever filling its incredible hunger for hours.
Okay. So, I'll just let it play through.
This
Grandpa reacts. Oh, yeah, no.
Not by means of conflict, but rather through construction. While most of my brethren from the past have fallen.
Oh, dude, thank you so much. Also, I fixed the animations. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
The decay, with my vast knowledge in cybernetics and artificial abominable intelligence. Although many fear me for that, and would rather see my mind rocket and my body recycled.
He did not pay attention to his cycles.
The layout I designed has exponentially increased the rate of efficiency by magnitudes. However, some things can't be rushed, and that the spirit of the machine has to be
That's
respected.
cool.
With whispers and charms, we express
Little
our
menu
love
that he
for the
made.
Messiah, the machine god. And the Messiah causes us with knowledge. Before proceeding with any assembly of the machine, we have to ensure the spirit is willing. Yet, while we can only speak to these machines through whispers, their pilots synchronize their own steadfast minds with the spirit ruling the machine. And the unison of thoughts, where the mind carrying the strongest desire takes control. Titans, mankind's god machines, rising up at over 100 feet, the mightiest ground weapon ever created by
The
human
Adeptus are
hands.
really cool. I like the whole tech thing.
Controlled by steadfast Princess Mom.
Not as good as Papa Nurgle, but
These
pretty
living
cool.
warwalkers have conveyed the judgment of the Imperium on countless of worlds.
Interesting texture choice.
Being can deny the might of the
Looks good
Imperium
up close.
as they see the beauty of our own Messiah manifested as this marvelous and colossal artwork of war. With love for the machine, we humans have granted these titans the blessing of life.
Oof. That's rough. You don't want that.
Where are you going?
That was,
4.5 minutes
it
have
would need to be
passed.
cleaner to do that close up. Oof. Okay. That's pretty cool. I knew it. I was about to say, okay, so this is very clearly made in Blender. And boom, there it is. I like this animation a lot, at least in terms of the like story that it's telling. But there were a few things that I noticed right off the bat. For one thing, he's not very confident in his faces, and you can kind of see. We're just gonna turn off the volume for a second because that's gonna bother me while I just shift. Wait, I think I can just frame by frame this bitch. I can. Okay, yeah. You can see he's not very confident in his faces because A, they're not really textured. Like they don't when you look at him like it's a very basic skin tone and skin texture, which is I mean he did okay. It's a good shape and the impressive part of this model here is the all the mechanics and stuff. That's the kind of the whole thing with the Adeptus Mechanicus, right? Also, he doesn't have fingernails. I don't know why that bothers me, and there could be an in-lore reason for that, but he doesn't have fingernails. And hands, for me personally, whenever I work in Blender, are the hardest part to model. They always feel wrong. I don't know. I don't know. It drives me nuts. Um, the other thing that this scene in particular is that I kind of smiled at is because he's hiding a face that he didn't want to model. I mean, you can see because when you look at the center, there's no eyes, even though there is kind of like an eye socket indent. There's no real definition in the neck leading up to this mechanical bit. It's very much, he was very much just like, yeah, I need to hide this. I don't want to do a face, which I get, you know what I mean? I understand. Um, his texturing is a little weird too. Besides the fact that, I mean, you can see here there's kind of an artifact where the tube is going through his his cloth, I guess, but the cloth is also super shiny, like to a point that wouldn't naturally be that way. A cloth is like a matte texture, and you can see in the actual texture that it's format or it's oh geez, I don't want to use the word texture again because when I say texture right now, I'm referring to like the thing that is applied on the mesh model in Blender. That gives it color and that and texture meaning like how this bottle has texture, how these ribs here have texture, and you can see that it's being applied here to this what Tech Adept's robe, but he could have just left like turned down the shine completely. I don't know what model of blender he used, if he used it in the more recent one in 2.8 2, I believe, is the stable version. You can just turn down the shading in the standard SDF filter, the filter that comes with every single base model, and you would get a significantly more realistic to that kind of cloth, especially tech adepts that are around technology all the time, so their shit's going to be all messy and greasy and all that. Um, he also has a lot of overlapping topography in both the robe and how it connects into the neck and how these tubes go through the neck. And you could really easily have just split the symmetry. So if like this is the tube, here's a mesh of the helmet. He could have just split it here with a tear, which is a thing you can do in Blender, and then have the tube go in through a hole instead of having this meshing geometry, which not only kind of looks jank when you, it doesn't look bad when you play it, because like in real time, it's like a couple of
Yes,
seconds. You're just like
Douglas. That's
five,
your place of
4,
origin.
3, and there's action to kind of distract you from
Yes.
it.
No.
But when you look at just the base model, you're like, I mean, it's just a care thing and also a exposure to it kind of editing thing where you're like, oh, okay, wait, this is what I need to do or this is what I should do when you look at it a second time, and that happens over time and over time, and you just learn it as you acquire a new skill. Hell, I'm not very good at it. I'm just super meticulous, and I'll be like, what makes this bad? um, Another thing I noticed, this was I found this a bit funny. This is a beautiful scene here, and I wanted to break it down a bit. But basically, what we have here is we have. Oops, let's go back. This is kind of cool. He's using character models here and like a scenic backdrop. But those kind of buildings are like the first thing you learn when you're making Blender because they're made up of simple shapes. This I like a lot though, because he's kind of used like a faded plane and he's using lighting to imply, he could, I don't know, actually I'm not entirely sure what he's implying. He's either implying that it's like heat or it could be distance, but it looks cool and I dig it. This makes me smile every time I see it though. So for those of you that haven't fucked about in Blender before, um this here, the water flowing down a pipe into a thing is like Blender 101. You see this animation, you see donuts and chairs. Thank you, Blender Guru, for everything that you do for us. But like, it's such a common beginner Blender thing that you can do so much with. I mean, if you look at it here, he's basically created this still and then just mimicked it a few times to imply that there's this massive factory. It's just funny because it's one of those like, baby's first Blender animation things. That's just great. I mean, I've done this. Also, balls bouncing down things or up and around things. That's another really common one. Uh, and then the other thing, he also plays with particle effects really well here that I like. Like that smoke animation is another. It's a little more advanced than pouring water, but it's well done. It looks cool. I think the smoke itself probably would not stay confined to the, oh, it's within a couple seconds. So the smoke is kind of confined. Well, it does go out a bit. I don't think the smoke would be as confined to the shape, but maybe I'm wrong. You do see a very common issue with Blender here. Uh, Fireflies. I call them fireflies. I don't remember their official name, but what they essentially are these little, if you look at the shaft here and like all the metal, it happens a lot with shiny materials, and it's an issue with the rendering that you need to take care of in your nodes or your settings, and it just makes things look staticky. You can see it really, really, really a lot in that there, and then later on in the animation, if we just go forward a bit, it's also on this ground here. It's not horrible. I mean, it detracts from the animation, but I was looking for things to comment on. You know what I mean? If you're watching it and you didn't use Blender, you just be like, oh, maybe it's a shiny floor. Maybe it's this thing. But like, I remember making a storage cube, and I had to deal with these stupid fireflies so much. It drove me nuts. I did very much like this scene though, with the screen, which is like a plane that he's made transparent. It's a pretty easy thing to do, but it is also cool. I appreciate it. It's very on brand for the Adeptus Mechanicus, I feel like. Um, the texturing for the world as a whole, I'm just gonna be honest with you, I don't really like. It feels as though he found a repeating texture that like worked, and dude, I've been there. But like you could see these scrapes and cuts, the texture repeats itself all over the place, and he uses it for everything. Like all the walls, to kind of imply this techno feel. And it would have just been better suited to bathe the whole thing in black and reduce the lighting, because it doesn't really add to the scene, I think, in the way that you'd hope, and the randomness of it almost makes it feel more like orc technology than Adeptus Mechanicus technology, because the Adeptus Mechanicus is, I don't want to say this, affiliated with the, they have a pact with the Imperium. I believe that's still ongoing in current canon. Um, but their tech, I feel like, would be much cleaner. Um, this just composite black metal looks very orc. Um, he does really good job with the close-ups, though. I mean, like the texture at a glance here is very repetitive. It almost looks like a foam. But when he brings it up to here, he's done a good job here. He's done a really good job texturing it, giving that right lighting. This below bit here is a bit too matte for me, but man, does it look good. I love this. He could have paid a little more attention to detail on some of the smaller bits, but the way he lit this scene, excellent job. The writing is spot on. Like the tech priest has believable dialogue, I guess is my point. Just notice this servitor skull looks really cool, looks a little under textured. A lot of this either feels overexposed to a point where like that's an issue, or it feels underexposed. Yeah, I just don't know how to put it any other way. Like I look at the skin and I think underexposed, and then I look at the tech and I think overexposed, and that's probably why, it's like fucking up. But let me see here. The like I said, the whole scene itself, like the narrative, I liked it. He did use Audacity too. That was going to be my next thing. It sounded like he used the tech filter from Audacity for this whole thing. And boom, he did. So this is very much an at-home project, but he did a really good job kind of showing what you can do with free software, and I really appreciate that. Final note would just be, obviously he's not probably not a natural-born English speaker, because you can see on his profile it says Stockholm. Yeah, that probably means, that there's going to be some issues with like the direct translation, but otherwise it was excellent. There were just a few times where the English was a little bit clunky. But all in all, I liked it. I mean, there were a lot of areas where he could have improved for sure, like 10 out of 10. But of the ones that I've seen so far, not even just the ones I've seen on this channel, like reacting, it's pretty good. It's up there in like the top 10, top 15, that's for sure. The next two are not 3D at all, and they have more to do with like they're really really short, and they have more to do just like 2D animation. You know what I mean? So you're gonna probably it's probably done in programs that I don't have, because most people don't use GIMP. It's like the poor man's Photoshop, and like really poor man's Photoshop. It's not a bad program, but it's not the industry choice. Let's call it that. So we'll jump into we're just going to watch both these. They're like 44, 55 seconds long each. And then we'll talk about them. Oh shit. So this is by Warhammer Adventures. It's called Anything is Possible. This next one is called Explore the Galaxy. Necrons, what's up? One of the best races. Don't at me. Okay. These are adorable. I like these a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I don't have a lot of comments because for one thing, in terms of 2D animation, it was it's pretty stock standard cartoon kind of animation. Um, when you look at some of the broader scenes, this one was so adorable. Definitely my favorite was Anything Is Possible. This guy
In the
does
darkness
this. What the
between the
is that?
stars.
Stop. Okay, it was this one was definitely my favorite. It was adorable. That's gonna f me up. Anyway, and hey, it happens to be kind of Adeptus too in theme. But the characters, I will note, in some of the broader themes, they feel tacked on. It feels like some of the less attention to detail was paid to the background, and because of that, the shading feels a little bit weird, and it feels like they're almost like cutouts within a scene. I'm sure that's not the case. Well, it may very well have been the case, but there's an easy way to, change that so that it works in an editing program. So I feel like that may have been a design choice, kind of show a contrast and bring the viewer's attention to the actual cartoon characters, or maybe they just didn't want to do a lot of work on the background scenes because they're a pain in the ass. I mean, even here you see it's kind of sketched. You know what I mean? You got some overlapping lines and all that nonsense. So I feel as though it was a design choice, and they just want you to look at they want you to be looking at these characters and the actions that they're performing because they have the consistent shading. Like everything that they're touching has consistent shading and all that. So I feel like it's like, oh, look at these things. We're just gonna go back to full screen. Oh, look at these things, and don't worry about back here because like you look at the back here and the shading's kind of wonky. It feels like there's a light source here, but that wouldn't cast that. Well, maybe that would. Well, then that wouldn't cast a shadow here unless that's supposed to be from this light source, but then that would change the shadows around. Well, maybe not. Maybe this is consistent. Maybe I'm just talking out my ass. I'm not quite sure. What do you guys think? I'm not. I started saying some shit, and then I realized I might be wrong. It might just be that this is the primary light source that they're alluding to, and then throughout the scene, like you're only seeing changes in that from like the machinery. Though my point still does stand about the background. Like you can even look at any of these scenes, and this would be more lit. I mean, maybe the light source is over here, and that's why that's like that. But the background does not have as consistent lighting as you'd think. But otherwise, it's awesome. I like it a lot. I like both of them a lot. I like this the most though because it's got Necrons. They also seem to kind of do a 3D thing here. I don't know if they're using After Effects or if they have like a Blender kind of software, but I love that kind of pan in. But even here, she's the artist is drawing attention to the person, the cartoon, whatever, the main action, by shading them slightly differently and drawing them in a different way against the background. So I guess yeah, this second video definitely confirms that whole like that's their artistic choice, which is cool. I mean, it's a modern thing, but yeah, like here, I mean, yep. Yep. I like the attention to detail, how the hue is slightly green with the lighting here too. Why did I keep doing that? The hue is slightly green here. So when she like goes, I'm guessing this is a girl, I don't know, goes to grab this thing, the face changes a little bit, and especially when she goes in with the hands to grab it, like there's green there. Very smart. That's something a lot of artists don't do, or don't, especially beginner artists don't do, is lights have color, and that's going to distort your skin color or whatever based on the light's hue, not just the fact that it's a light source. 3D rendering things and all that, they'll do that stuff for you. No problem, bing bang boom. But a program like I don't know, Photoshop, GIMP, Blender, or not Blender, Photoshop and GIMP, Krita, those kind of things, they won't. You got to make your own light source or have an implied light source. So like if I'm making a 2D image and the 2D image is um, I don't know, let's say it's like a field or something, right? But the sun is not visible in the back of the field, which means the light is not coming from the back. You can imply just by the shadows that like the viewer is the light source or the light source is behind the viewer, something like that. But yeah, that was those were both really good. If you guys have anything else you'd like me to react to, I mean, feel free to send it in. I will check it out as long as it's TOS. I'm not going to be playing anything ridiculous. You can just put it in the chat and I will check out the link. But with that said, just give me a couple of seconds and I will be right back in order to set up the game.